Hello. Thank you so much to everyone for coming. My name is Nicole Heldupis, and I'm the marketing coordinator at Breakwater Books. We're excited to welcome you to the virtual launch of local authors, playwrights, and performers Paul David Power and Bernardine and Teráz Stapleton as they launch their new books, Crippled and Love Life. We respectfully acknowledge the land on which we operate as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, the island of Newfoundland as the ancestral homelands of the Mi'kmaq and the Beothuk. We would also like to recognize the Inuit and Innu as the original people of Labrador. If you're wondering where you can get these books, you can purchase your copies in person at our shop at 1 Stamps Lane if you're in St. John's, from our website, www.breakwaterbooks.com, or from your favorite independent bookstore. I'll put those links for you in the chat. The book is also available through all usual major retailers. You can also get signed copies of these books this Saturday. Both authors will be doing signings on October 9th if you're in St. John's. So Paul will be signing at Chapters on Kenmount Road, and Bernardine will be signing at Coles at the Village Mall, both from 1 to 3 p.m. So without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce our host for the evening, Danielle Irvine. Danielle is a proud Newfoundlander who has had to travel a lot for her work. Highlights of her career include teaching at the National Theatre School of Canada, assistant directing at the Stratford Festival of Canada, including being the first director to study in their Birmingham Conservatory, and winning such awards as the Canada Council for the Arts prestigious John Hirsch Prize for directing, the Arts NL BMO Artist of the Year, and the Arts NL Artist Achievement Award in 2019. Danielle was also a participant in the World Stage Festival's 2000s Masterclass for Directors and in the inaugural Stratford Festival's International Classical Directing Intensive. For over 25 years, she has been directing theatrical productions of all sizes and types in all manner of venues, including the director of Paul David Power's play Crippled. She has also been a keynote speaker and workshop leader at various conferences over the years, and is also a casting director for television and film. Her credits include CBC's Republic of Doyle, the Netflix series Frontier, the CBC series Little Dog, the CBC miniseries Caught, the City TV series Hudson and Rex, and the feature film Maudie. Recently, she has been nominated a YWCA Woman of Distinction for Arts and Culture and a Canadian Screen Award nomination for Excellence in Casting for Frontier. Since 2014, Danielle has been bringing her love of Newfoundland culture and community together with her passion for Shakespeare and other timeless theater in her role as the artistic director of Perchance Theater at Cupid's. Please welcome Danielle.
Hi there. Thank you so much, Nicole. It's great to be here. I am thrilled and honored to get to speak with these incredible artists this evening. I have been a longtime fan of Bernardine and Teráz Stapleton's work. I can remember crystal clear second play I ever saw at the LSPU Hall was Bernardine's play, Woman in a Monkey Cage. And you know, if something stands out in your mind of the hundreds of plays I've seen over the years, that means a lot. Her work is luminous, her work is transportive, and I just can't get enough of hearing her words written in a book, spoken on a stage by her or by others, or just watching her perform. So I am honored and thrilled to welcome her tonight. We are going to have readings from works. We're going to have conversation, and then we're going to open up to the internet to ask questions and talk with us. But first, without further ado, I'm going to do a proper introduction of Bernardine. And Teráz Stapleton is an award-winning playwright, a writer, and a performer of unique distinction. She has served as a writer in residence at Memorial University, as a playwright in residence with several national companies, and as artistic director of theater festivals. Her plays are regularly produced nationally and internationally. Her short fiction has appeared in Riddle Fence and the Newfoundland Quarterly. Her other books include Girly Muckle and the Queer Hands, Problematic Press, They Lay Down Baskets, co-author This Is the Cat, and Rants, Riffs, and Roars. So please welcome Bernardine. Hello. Let's have your sound on. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, Danielle, thanks for that.
It's true. Thank you. Thank you. You inspired me so much. I can remember that play like absolute crystal clarity visually and story-wise, and that's how striking it was to me. So, you have been a long time inspiration of mine. I want to ask you, before we get underway, can you tell me about your name? Because, yeah, please do.
I would love to. So most people have known me as Bernie for most of my career. Sometimes Bernardine was landing in other places, as such as in things that I had written or articles and stuff. But I was named Bernardine by my mother. I was named after my uncle Bernard, who was a taxi driver, who I actually wrote about in my play, Brazel Square. And when I finished school when I was pretty young, and I went to Halifax to study broadcasting. And my first job, I was hired to go to Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and work at a radio station there. And when I arrived, the program director had taken it upon himself to change my name from Bernardine to Bernie. And so he had just taken it and changed it. And so all the posters and the PR and all the advertisements were Bernie. And I was pretty young at the time and didn't really have any wherewithal to object. And it just kind of followed me around for all of my career. It never felt like me. I always felt it's a mask I wore. And when I was writing Love Life, actually, I knew that I was writing as Bernardine and that I had all of these different parts of me that were off. One of me was on stage, one of me was writing, one of me was doing something else. And I thought, I want to use the book to feel more amalgamated and honor my full given name.
It's so beautiful. Isn't it? It is. It's so beautiful, but it's also amazing the power of a name.
It really is. And the Teráz is because my mother has a very special devotion to Saint Teresa. And I love that about my mother. She is very devout and has a very special relationship with Saint Teresa. And when I was doing some research, I found out that there are many Saint Teresas, and the stories are all the same, but there's one in different countries. So when I was getting confirmed, we did, my mom and I decided that I would take this variation of Teráz, and so that's where that came from. And I think that's a beautiful story as well, that there's a lot of stories about my mom and how fervently she wishes for all of her children and grandchildren to do well. And she always calls upon Saint Teresa to help do that. And I think that's really beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And thank you, because I realized, I think I said Teráz, it's Teráz. It's so beautiful. And the spelling is so beautiful. Yeah. And that's such a great story. And, the power of a name, but also just the assumption that people can make about us by just taking your name and chopping it. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, it led to a lifetime of struggle because the program director had changed it to Berni. But of course, if you hear Bernie, you automatically assume there's an E in there. And then I had a theater director, Maxim Mazumdar, who decided it should be Bern. So I have a whole bunch of posters where it's spelled Berne. And in the meantime, I was sort of like, oh, who do they want me to be this time?
Wow.
So that's that journey. But thank you for inviting me to share it, because I know some people have wondered about it and asked about it and why the change. So that's why.
It's beautiful. Does it actually inform how you name your characters?
Yes, very much so. The characters in the book are all variations of Bernardine, and each of those through lines and each of those stories carry a different narrative, because all of their voices are different, and they're coming through a different viewpoint.
Amazing. I think we should take this minute or this moment to have a reading. Is that okay? Do you feel ready to do a reading?
I'd love to read
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll turn off my camera so we can focus on you.
Okay. Hi, friends. I wanted to say that I'm also going to read the prologue of this book, which goes like this. Not that long ago, once upon a time when the world was round, I sailed across the sky in a tin can to Italy. This book began there. I knew then it was a love letter to life, and now it is also my love letter to Italy. Until we meet again, arrivederci. A mollusk in Italy. I'm standing on top of a very tall hill in Italy. This is the tallest hill if not in all of Italy, then for sure in all of Lucca. Lucca rhymes with hookah. No one can tell me this isn't the tallest hill in all of Lucca, because every time I ask, how tall is this hill? Someone barks, io non parlo inglese, accompanied by the withering look. Therefore, I say it is the tallest hill in all of Lucca, because as I crawled my way to the top, it felt like it. There is a thunderstorm at my feet. A cloud drifts by. It hovers beside me. It speaks rapidly in Italian, in such a manner that I almost, but don't quite understand what it says. It sounds like, scusi, come stai? I myself am very well, thank you for almost asking. I admire you greatly, you little mollusk, as you cling impossibly upon this sun-drenched mountain. Perhaps you noticed me as I hovered above you in a highly desirable configuration of early morning mist. You would be perfect if only you would eat more pasta. It says, you have the eyes of a firefly's last breath. A lemon tree doing tree pose drops a giant lemon on my head. This hill overlooks an olive grove, which overlooks the villa complex of Il Borghino, which overlooks the vineyard, which overlooks other lesser hills, which overlook valleys, which overlook ramparts, which overlook the city of Lucca, Tuscany. Lucca is surrounded by ancient ramparts. They were built to keep out Napoleon Bonaparte. They failed, but they live on while he does not. Those of us in the know refer to it as the walled city of Lucca. It is also the birthplace of the great composer Giacomo Antonio Domenico Michel Secondo Maria Puccini, he of La Bohème and Madame of Butterfly. There is a huge festival here each year in his honor that raises money to pay for a sign wide enough to bear his full name. If you have never heard Maria Callas sing the aria, Un bel dì vedremo, now is a good time to do that. Butterfly sings, one good day, we will see. When the hair lifts off the back of your neck, you will have an iota of what it feels like to stand here.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Your work comes right off the page. I can feel, the theater creator in you. It feels conversational. It feels very alive, which is, amazing. How do you feel about the difference between writing a play and a novel?
I feel simultaneously a little bit like an imposter.
Oh.
But I do write like a playwright. I follow a structure. I definitely start with a dialogue-based draft. And I've got this voice and voices in my head that are feeding me all the time and feeding the stories. And then my process then is to allow myself to become very sensory about what I'm seeing, feeling, smelling, tasting, and and I do follow a structure of prologue. And so each of the through lines in the book gets their own, really like their own act one, their own act two, their own act three, and their own epilogue, as well as the prologue. And that's how I put it all together. Yeah, so it was sort of like there were four stories that then became interlocked like a Rubik's Cube.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I felt that, yeah. And so we're talking about this beautiful, crystal clear, magical world, yet it is also truthful. And we were kind of chatting before about what does it feel like to write about truth and magical realism and theater and art, and how does they blend together? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I would love to. One of my earliest influences in creative nonfiction was Lucy Greeley, who had written, this is some years ago, a book called Autobiography of a Face, and she became very famous for that book. She subsequently passed away, but she wrote about her childhood with a very severe form of cancer, and how literally it disfigured her. There was something about the book that it was almost written as a poem, and I became very fascinated by the fact that she had managed to create a world and a universe that was deeply intimate, and yet felt like there were definite boundaries, and it felt like this was a story for everyone. I always write from a deeply personal place, and there are times when things are heavily disguised or have to depart from the root in order to be theatrical, or in order to be appealing. We call this at Breakwater, we decided that we were going to call this a mostly true fable, because it is hard to distinguish the boundaries within the book. And, there's also safety and respect in embracing the fictionalized part of all of these stories. But it's always, gosh, I woke up so many mornings and thought, no, I can't do it. I don't know where I'm going to find the belief.
Mm.
And I think we all feel that way when we're making something, whether it's theater or a play or a poem or a song. It's like, what makes me worthy?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but when I landed in Italy, I just want to say it's fantastic to be in a country where it's a different language. So there's that. So you're completely protected. And as a Newfoundlander. And so when I was a Newfoundlander in Italy, people went, and I don't know how or why people knew about Newfoundland, but I was there, and with the Nova Yoga retreat group with Haynes and all of her folks. Those of us who were Newfoundlanders just got embraced in a way that was unbelievable. And they wanted to hear about our food. They wanted to hear about the ocean. There was a huge overlapping of, oh, you're writing this book, you must go see this. Going to see theater and opera and not speaking the language was beautiful. And so there was a great protection in that, of freedom to just write, because it didn't really matter what anybody saw or read or thought about it. And it sort of became like a little like that cloud that went, you're okay, eat more pasta. So I try to channel that, since I can't go to Italy anymore.
And so that's great. And also that freedom of being, of being away from where you walk down the street and everybody knows you. It's like you're completely anonymous.
Yes, it is. One of my favorite books I'm writing is by Anne Lamott. It's called Bird by Bird, and I love, she has a little passage in there that says, if people are upset with you for writing about them, just tell them, if you care, you should have been nicer to me when you had. I've never written anything bad about anybody, so it's not that. But I have had to come to respect that not everybody in my life wants a platform or wants to be on mine
Mhm.
on this
Mhm.
stage. And so that, I don't know how other people find that, but it's definitely a consideration to
Have,
have.
have you had any experiences when we were talking about this, like, how do you protect people? Do you protect people? Like, have you had any experiences, good or negative, that you'd like to share with us?
Well, yeah, I won't say who, but I have had some people in my life who have just kind of quietly said, I don't want to be referenced in any of
Right.
your work.
Mm.
And I may have been hurt by that, but I definitely was okay to say, you're right.
Yeah.
Because you're a person in my life, you're not a character on a stage. And then there's also just the understanding of, like I read recently that Prince Philip's will is not going to be published for 50 years
Oh
to
my
protect.
goodness.
Yeah. And then I was like, maybe I'll write a bunch of stuff and just have it published like 50 years after.
That's a
Well,
great
I
idea.
have to say everything I want to say anyway. So
Well, it's also, again, part of being in a small community, right? Like, even if you're not writing about somebody, somebody might go, "Oh, that's me," or people go, "Oh, I bet that's so and so," or we have that. Um, we had Robert Chafe and I were doing Butler's Marsh, and we had very carefully hidden the content. We wanted the surprise of Butler's Marsh to be a surprise, so we kept saying family drama, and at the end of opening night, the end of the show, I'm coming down the theater, and this guy walks up to me and goes, "Are you Danielle Irvine?" I'm like, "Yeah." Yes. "I'm so and so Butler. I own Butler's Marsh." And I was like, he's like, "I thought you were writing an expose about my family, and I came,
oh,
and clearly it's not, right?" And he was like, "But what a fright, and a good lesson for Robert and I both." Yeah.
yep. It's important. And it has happened to me in the past. Where people think they know what you're writing about, and they misinterpret it, or they worry about it, and it causes anxiety and stuff. So it's definitely a minefield, and one to always be respectful and mindful of. Definitely.
Um, I just want to ask this, the challenge of working with lived experience, but making it relatable and theatrical, because you do it. I mean, this book is so theatrical, and your plays, obviously. What are some of the things that you think about when you're doing that? Is that when you were talking about the senses earlier, or are there other things in there you'd like to share?
I definitely am a very impulsive writer, and I let the voice come, and the voices come, and I let them have their say and let them have their way. Um, and then typically, whether it's writing for theater, or in this case, writing a book, then I just go back and look at it and think, what is the structure that's going to help this story live?
Mhm.
It's definitely deeply, deeply personal. I mean, and I've heard from women who have said that they really appreciate that I write about the struggle with body image, and the struggle with, how we feel about our bodies, and
Mhm.
how we that voice that just puts how we speak to ourselves, and we would never speak to anybody else like that. Um, and that took a lot as well, because it's like, on the outside, I think we all want to be seen that we're not worried by anything, and we're not really troubled by anything. But definitely writing things down in this book, it's very naked in a way. It's like, I relate, about not going out to an opening of a play of mine, because I had such a hard time getting out of the house, and going to Italy, and just seeing just a different value system in terms of how women look. I have a line in the book that if you're a woman of a certain age in Italy, just go and sit at a table and pluck your chin hair, and you're going to have 3 proposals by cocktail hour.
It's brilliant, right? It's that cultural thing we're stuck in. I was going to ask another question, but I feel like now will be another time to do a reading if you are ready.
I would love to.
Thank you so much, Bernardine. And I will turn my camera off and sound,
Okay.
but I'm still here.
The sweetest and strangest love affair to ever happen in Italy began on a rainy evening. It was the unassuming end to an unassuming day that turned out to be very assuming after all. The thunderstorm was sudden, as they all are in Italy. In a moment, hail was rattling upon ancient stones. The water rose magnificently as if from an underground faucet. Anyone listening closely would have discerned inside the thunderclaps the strains from La Boheme. People still talk about that storm. Artists have gone mad trying to capture it, which everyone knows is impossible. Thunderstorms hardly ever agree to sit for portraits. Sofia Giacomo Antonio Domenico Michele Secondo Maria lurks in the open doorway of her world-famous trattoria. It is called Sophia's world-famous trattoria because Sophia understands that people don't know what to think unless you tell them. Sophia's world-famous trattoria is hidden down one of 10,000 unmarked dank alleys in Venice. It is a devious restaurant. The entrance, a dark door with no doorknob, lurks across from a canal. A minuscule brass plaque reluctantly displays the name of her establishment. Inside, there's one table, one chair. There is one reservation taken for one night of the year. This was that night. And there is one Sophia who makes all the rules. Sophia has the great misfortune to be named after the world-famous composer Puccini, hence the lengthy name. This is one of many sound reasons she has to resent her parents. She loves her first name because she adores and prays nightly to her patron saint, Santa Sofia Loren. The rest of her name she could have done without. It makes getting a driver's license very difficult because her entire name will not fit on one side, or even two. She would have preferred to be named Sophia the Sweet Saint, or perhaps Sophia the Kind. Then maybe she would have turned out to be a nicer person, or even a nice person. Sophia is formidable because she has accepted the fact that she's not a nice person, not necessarily a bad person, but not at all a nice person. Sometimes when she wakes up in the morning, she forgets for 1 second that she isn't nice and feels quite light until she remembers. She pulls scams on tourists. She has magpie tendencies toward shoplifting precious things. She is beautiful. Therefore, people automatically assume she is nice. They often refuse to believe her true nature, even after she's demanded money from them for deliberately wrong directions to their hotel. She is rigorous with the truth, but will lie to inconvenience tourists who irritate her. This knowledge of her own not niceness gives her a strange intensity. She is smolderingly beautiful in a dark, hairy way, smoldering because there is frequently a lit cigarette between her red lips. Her hair is wiry. Her teeth are crooked. She is as crooked as her teeth. Sophia is wearing one of only 2 dresses she owns. It is a black knit dress that accentuates her curves by politely not clinging to them. The high neck and long sleeves are trimmed with 3,000-year-old beige lace. It is the sexiest dress in the world because it carries the scent of baked bread with hot butter melting over golden curves. Sophia's other dress is exactly the same. Once she found the dress she liked best, she didn't see a reason to wear anything else. It is exactly the sort of dress Sophia Loren might have worn when she was 25, or might wear now, when she is 85. Her air of mystery is enhanced by the fact that she wears a dark lace veil to cover part of her face, leaving just enough space so that her cigarette has room to smolder. She has worn the veil ever since the death of her papa, not out of grief, for spite. Men are drawn to her, constantly bewildered by the blind eye she turns toward them. Women shy away from her because they intuit her repressed tendencies. As a result, she is known locally as the Veiled Virgin, but only in whispers when people have their heads safely hidden deep in blankets or closets or coffins. That's it.
Wow. I love her. Thank you. I want to meet her. How incredible. How incredible.
Yeah, I ran into her one night in Venice, and she was just as rude I don't even think I could articulate how rude she was. And I did eat at a restaurant, and I'm pretty sure she stole my credit card number.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
The next day, there was all of these text messages from my bank in St. Paul, Newfoundland, going, we have to put a hole on your credit card. There's weird purchases going on. So
That's like, what a great story, but I'm so sorry that happened.
it's okay.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. How vivid. Your description is so vivid, and how you lay her out. It's like, and then the reveal that she's 85. I'm like, what? And the veil. Oh my goodness. Thank you. I feel I should just take 1 second. Paul, Paul wasn't able to attend. After all, we were holding space, but he wasn't able to attend. But hopefully you will get to hear him do one of his readings at another point. And so apologies to people who are listening or waiting for Paul. We haven't been ignoring him or keeping him tied up in the corner. He wasn't able to attend. So without further ado, back to talking with Bernardine. So I just hang on, I might bring up my questions again, because I was just checking in. The want to talk about, where does your drive come from?
I don't know what I would do if I couldn't write. I don't know how to be a person other than that, like, honest to God. And I've heard, particularly since the pandemic, I've listened to a lot of conversations where people said that they really have other lives, like they have a family life, or they have another passion, but I don't. I mean, I have a life, clearly, but I think ever since I was a child, my complete identity was wrapped up in being able to put a pen to paper. And, that was books and writing. And, my grandfather was a poet and kept a journal every day of his life. And he taught me to read using Alfred Hitchcock's mystery magazine.
Wow.
And, it was how I found my place in the world. And I think, like many, many others, I never felt I fit in. I was certainly didn't make friends easily. So I think my drive and my passion just comes from literally that I wouldn't know how to do anything else. I wouldn't know a day if I didn't write something. I may not always be completely confident in what I'm doing at all. And it kind of confuses me sometimes when people talk about retirement and things like that, because as an artist, and I think many artists relate to this, like it's a foreign concept, because we're not in a job that we necessarily want to retire from. And it's a calling that doesn't necessarily ever let you go. Yeah, so it's genetically imprinted in me. And I'm very grateful for that, because it does give a purpose to my life, I think.
And so I hadn't realized that writing came first before acting. That makes a lot of sense, because your use of words is so unique, and clearly a long time. It's you.
One of my favorite stories, which occurs in the sequel to Love Life, which I'm working on now, is based on the fact that my grandfather taught me to read using Alfred Hitchcock's mystery magazine, and I was 4, and because of my birthday's on New Year's Eve, so that falls in a strange place for when you go into the school system. So I went in at age 4 into like grade 1. And I remember getting this book to read, and it was about the little yellow duck, and it had 2 words a page. And I was like, where's the rest of the book? Where's the body under the rose bush? Where's the murder? And I remember being strapped in class for being big in myself, like for showing off and spoiling the saga of the Little Yellow Duck for other people.
At the age of 4.
At the age of 4, yes. So definitely then words also became a revenge, kind of like a revenge, like, as I would go home and write in my little, like my diary book with the key, like, she's gonna be sorry one of these days. And I don't know if she is sorry, but anyway, that was, yeah. So words always became very important to me.
Amazing.
Words on the page. And I just want to say, I know we had this conversation before, but I'm really kind of fixating on all the Post-it notes on the wall because that's your system of creating. And now I'm thinking, like, I can totally see how that works if you want to break down chapters and storylines or scenes and acts from plays.
Yeah, when I was working on an adaptation of taking 3 plays down into one there a year and a half ago, and I mean this whole wall around the corner were all sticky notes, right? And it was like, here are the themes, here are the important, scene points, and I was able to pull them over and craft it into something that I needed to get to a certain size. And so, and then I keep all the sticky notes and I put them all in the baggie, and then it's weird.
Oh, that's going to be like a puzzle for whoever that. But I also like the idea that it's kind of like a living wall.
Yeah.
And like, it's the art is always going to change. Like I really, really like that. And they're all different colors as well. And similarly, all of my work happens longhand first.
Right.
So it's the process for me of actually typing it up it's a big leap in discipline, because you can write in a book, and then when it comes time to sit down and get to the page, it doesn't feel so scary for me staring at the screen.
That's so smart. That is so smart. Yeah, you're coming from a place that's already uncovered a bit.
Yeah.
Because that blank screen's brutal. Thank you for saying that, because I feel like that's what the sticky notes do for me. Like I have something to write from, and then I'll put the sticky notes up and I'll write from the sticky notes, and yeah.
Yeah, I actually love the day that I do that, because it feels like just kind of like discovery in finding, like, oh, I wrote that, I have no idea what it means, I don't know what I did, it's quite beautiful, and just getting it all out. So it feels good. And then of course, you can get locked in later on, but for me, that's always a really happy time. Stephen King wrote a book called The Tommyknockers, where the main character finds the remains of a spaceship buried on her farm, and it gives her psychic powers. And she invents a computer that actually writes the book for you while you dream about it.
Amazing.
I want one like that.
Yeah. It would be a lot easier, wouldn't it, than like tick, tick, tick. Oh,
Yeah, you wake up and it's right there.
I would love it if you would read another excerpt, and then if you're okay with that, and then I'll open it up to the internet for a Q&A session, if that's okay. Does that sound all right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bernardine. I'm here, even though I'm in silent mode.
Thank you. This is called The Orphanated Girl. Pittman, the orphanated girl, was best friend in all the world when I was a teenager. Pittman, with the wildest, thickest, dark brown hair, like a birch broom into fits. It crackled around her no matter what she did with it. The hairdresser would thin and thin and thin it, and still it would rise and rock and roll along her pale neck and round face. A birch is a wonderfully supple, slender tree from which excellent brooms were once fashioned. A birch broom in the fits is meant to denote an unruly head of hair. Pittman with John Lennon glasses before they were trendy, slightly buck teeth before they were sexy. She was slightly round, exotic. Everyone imprinted on her, especially me. The first time I saw her, she walked into my grade 7 class, sat down, plucked the corpse of a bluebottle fly from the windowsill, and ate it. All the boys instantly fell in love with her. All the girls did too. Everyone wanted to be her best friend. All our mothers wanted to adopt her, even one mother who already had an adopted daughter. This mother embarrassed us all when she cooed over Pittman. Oh, I could just adopt you. The already adopted daughter and the rest of us scuffed our feet and tried not to feel jealous, knowing that no one was ever going to coo over us in that matter. Pittman won everyone without trying and could be with anyone she wished. For some reason, she picked me. Early on, she read me Edgar Allan's poem, Alone, about how from childhood's hour, everything is shagged up. From childhood's hour, I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken. My sorrow I could not awaken. My heart to joy at the same tone. And all I loved alone. I had been praying every night, please God, don't let me wake up 3 o'clock in the morning tortured by ghosts and fears. Please God, let me wake up looking just like the girl on the cover of 17 magazine. Please God, let the lemon juice I've smeared all over my face evaporate my freckles so I'll fit in. Then came Pittman. According to her, I was a child of the universe. I had a right to be here along with the fishes and the loaves. I was skinny as a thread. People called me bird, but not in a good way. I was coated in so many freckles. You look like a bird shit on you through a screen door. Bird. After a few years, Pittman left the relative she had been lodging with and moved in with her father in St. John's. The house had no hot water or electricity. Her siblings moved in also. It was the most chaotic, loving, outrageous place to live ever. That house had hardships to overcome, but overflowed with joy and care. By the time Pittman and I were both 15, she discovered the veiled virgin was living with the nuns at Presentation Convent. In those last weeks before we parted ways, it became our mission to torture the nuns and visit the virgin every chance we got. Not knowing that our vigils would mark our last meaningful time together, we sat outside the convent while the mists rolled in on little cat feet through the narrows and the foghorn purred through the night. Thank you.
Thank you. I love it.
Thanks.
I love it. I love your descriptions. They're so vivid. And the bird shit through the screen door. I was like, and bird, but not in a good way. You know, we always think a bird is a beautiful thing, right? Yeah.
I think to the best of my knowledge, the veiled virgin is still at Presentation Convent.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
It is amazing.
So what I want to do now, I do want to open it up for questions in the Q&A. So I invite people to kind of start putting some things in there. But before I do, just want to also acknowledge that, like we were talking about this, myself and Bernardine and Paul before, that what a important, wonderful thing it is that Breakwater is doing by publishing plays. You know, they are such an ephemeral part of our community, and almost no publisher wants to publish plays. So a huge thank you to Breakwater for publishing the plays that you've been doing, the individual artists, the collections with Denise, Lind, like all of this work. I mean, these plays come and go. And we now have an archive of our community, or the beginning of an archive of our community. It's really, really important. So thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly. I have been told by publishers point blank, we're just not publishing plays. And you know, there's nothing in it. They don't sell, la la la. And I love it that Breakwater recognizes the value is greater than that and deeper than that. And especially Crippled is such a powerful story. It's such an amazing play that Danielle, you actually directed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I did. Yes, I had the privilege of getting to work with Paul on that journey.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you. You know, my tiny part in it, in Paul's massive journey, the journey that's still going, you know, he really wanted us to make sure we said that it's performing in Toronto next spring.
Yes.
So it's this incredible story, like yourself, that is, you know, grounded in truth, and then but broadened into, you know, magic and theater and story, but also you know, and I won't obviously do a reading or anything from Paul's, but in Paul's structure, I love the fact that where he breaks the structure of, like, he set up the structure of theater and then he breaks it and then he breaks it again. And every time he breaks it, it's, you know, you think the audience thinks they're going on one journey, and then we have this massive break, and then we think we're on that journey, and then there's another massive break. And it's so powerful and so brave to do those things, and it shakes you up to what's happening in that relationship between, you know, the character of Paul, the actor of Paul, and the relationship to the audience. That is, it's really shocking. And I have felt that relationship even, you know, change over the years as we've worked on it. But it makes that ephemeral preciousness between the audience and the performer so vivid. And I'm so grateful that he's taken me along on his journey, because wow, what a story. So I do hope that people pick up, you know, both of these incredible books and get them signed this weekend.
Yeah, and I do want to say that I think sometimes people get it in their head, and I've done this too. Oh, I can't read a play, or a play is not to be read. But it is a really powerful experience. It really is like any other book. It's, or a poem. It's this character, you know, who's talking at all the times. You know, the playwright is giving you what he or she visualizes in the stage directions. And I had a real great experience a couple of years ago. I actually got to sit on a Governor General's jury for theater, and I read a lot of plays from across the country. And it was the most enriching experience to start looking at plays as just another sensory experience. So, you know, that's why I also think it's great that Breakwater is publishing Crippled, and I've been lucky enough to be in some of the anthologies as well that, you know, and that keeps our stories alive. We live in a very storied place, and having these theater stories at our fingertips just gives them a new kind of life, I think. And reading Paul's play was deeply wonderful for me.
I feel the same way, and I feel like I can go back in time and look at these plays and go, wow, our community has been so prolific, and the different voices we have in our community, the different types of storytelling, and it's being captured. It's not all of it, but a lot of it's being captured, and I'm so grateful. There was a message that Paul's computer, his technology is down, and he's devastated, and so he sends his apologies, and we send our love back to him. Like, we all know the bane of technology. Yes. It's great until it's not. Until it's not. It's really, really not. We're really, really not. But we send love to you, Paul. I see a question in here from Catherine, is it? We had to read Shakespeare while at university, and a play is as close to joining a conversation as we can come. Isn't that true? It is true. It's as close to joining a conversation as we can come. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah. What do you think about that, Bernardine?
Oh my gosh, I love it. And when I first started reading Shakespeare, it was like I didn't have a clue. I would find things that I completely immersed myself in, and then I would be sacrilegious and skip the boring bits, you know. And Hamlet was one of the first plays I ever read. I was really, really young, and I know you just did it this summer.
Yeah.
Chance. And a long time ago in Stephenville, I was the worst Ophelia who ever walked the stage. Oh, I promise you, I was not great, but loved doing the role. And I think it did have something to do with the fact that I wasn't really all that interested in the story. I always thought it should be Ophelia's story.
Yeah.
And but yes, I agree with Shakespeare. It's wonderful.
It's imagine if plays hadn't been captured, you know, because they're conversations as we get a glimpse into how people were thinking, how people were talking, what were their important topics, you know. um, it's a great kind of glimpse into lived experience of the time. So now we have in these published plays lived experience of the time as told through the lens of artists. We do have 2 questions in the Q&A. Woohoo. So from Catherine Mousseau, I hope I said your name properly. Bernardine, you write both books and plays, but which comes to your heart first and why?
I would have to say that I have a divided heart. So they're just like, it's just like having a twin or a cat and a dog, or, you know, I love and adore them both equally. And Catherine herself is a really, really great writer, and also writes with great characters and characterizations. And for me, they both have equal value. In this world, theater is, you know, kind of a scary place. And I just spent, you know, a lot of my afternoon was talking to theater makers who live right across the country and are having great, great difficulties, and as we all are. And I know we're so fortunate right now to be living in a space where theater is being made again. And that kind of fear does live with me, though. Like, can we lose it all again?
Mm-hmm.
How delicate is it, and how can we make it last? I don't know the answer to that, like how we survive another lockdown, but I love and adore both equally.
Thank you. We have another question from Nicole Smith. If you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
I think for any of us of a certain age, that we'd have a lot to say to our younger selves. Mine would be to not be so caught up in what other people think, and to not be so caught up in needing other people's approval. You know, I struggled a lot to find my footing in my early years, because I didn't really know where I wanted to live. You know, I didn't know if I wanted to live in classical theater, and I never really felt I belonged there. And then I became involved with political collective theater, and I didn't know if I had the right to be there. It was such a struggle all the time in those years. I definitely, and as a writer, I definitely would have said, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Because, you know, as many successes as I had, or accomplishments, even if they weren't successful, I bet there were just as many that I didn't follow through with, or I abandoned. And I think maybe we're all like that a little bit, whether it's just something in our heart or whether it's something tangible, where you turn your back and really it's not about that thing, it's about you and whatever's going on. So also, full disclosure, Nicole is my writing partner in Girls from Away, and currently has custody of our shared adopted beagle, Georgie Girl, who's in Cambridge. Being a theater dog.
Tell me more about this beagle.
So it's very interesting to me. So the first beagle I met and fell in love with was Oliver, who makes an appearance in Love Life. I met him at the yoga retreat in Italy at Il Borghino. He's a bacon loving beagle in a vegetarian yoga retreat. So there you go. Little did I know that during the pandemic, my good friend Nicole and I were going to be working together, because she became stranded here in Newfoundland. We decided to foster a beagle and fell in love with this beagle. And so we agreed to co-parent. And that worked out for me because I had custody ever since, but Nicole just went back to Cambridge and rightfully took Georgie Girl with her. But I am missing the discipline in my life of having to be responsible for getting out for a walk 3 times a day. And dogs are great muses because they're always going to agree with what you say.
That's true. except for my dog who hated Shakespeare, which was really funny because anytime anybody was performing a monologue in my house, she would go to her bed, lie down, and let out a gigantic sigh and just turn her back to us. So sometimes they don't like the work. They can be critics too.
It's true. It's true.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions coming in that I'd like to give space for? No? I hear Georgia girl's very attentive to the launch, eating chicken treat vehemently. You should know. Bernardine, do you have anything else you'd like to share with us that I haven't covered?
Well, I want to send all my love to Paul. And I know, and I hope we can do another event sometime soon where he and I can be together with you. And because he definitely deserves to be in the limelight. So I kind of feel like I sucked up all of his limelight. I want to thank everybody at Breakwater, particularly who really believed in love life at a time when, you know, I felt I had lost everything. You know, when the pandemic happened, you know, it was great to hear from Rebecca, who said, we really believe in this book and we really want to work with you on this. And I want to thank you, Danielle, for doing this and hosting this, because it's so special. And to be validated in such a thoughtful and respectful way is such a rare thing. And I wish everybody could have it in their life always. So I feel very blessed in this moment.
Thank you. I feel very blessed in this moment. As I have said, my goodness, Bernardine, you've been in the forefront of my career since that time I sat in the hall and watched you work, and it was incredible. So I feel fortunate to get to be here with you and celebrate you and this incredible book that, like, I was going to read quotes from just like my favorite parts. I was like, okay, no, let Bernardine do the reading.
And I also just wanted to say, this is my other book. It's called Girly Muckle and the Queer Hands, and say
awesome.
a little hi to Dave Reynolds at Problematic Press, and thank both he and Breakwater for allowing the cross-reference of both books, which I think is super generous.
That's amazing. Thank you. And now I think we'd like to invite Nicole back to wrap things up. Thanks everybody for joining us. It's been a real pleasure.
It has.
Thank you so much, Bernardine and Danielle. That was such a beautiful discussion and reading. I've had so much fun listening to you too. Thank you so much. And I'm also sending so much love to Paul. You need to buy these two books. That's what I've got to say. So you can buy these two books again from our shop at One Stamps Lane, or you can order online. And don't forget that both Bernardine and Paul are doing signings this Saturday at Chapters and at Kohl's at the Village Mall.
Yes, and Bernardine will be frightened to death. So please come and say hi.
It's going to be awesome. We'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Canada Book Fund through the Department of Canadian Heritage, and the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador. Thank you so much for coming and for participating in this chat.
Time for the line, I think.
Fine time. Thanks, everybody. See you.
Bye. Thanks so much, Nicole.